What's going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day. I just hit my microphone. I apologize if you guys heard that. But hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this. We're going to be jumping into some more SCP action here. We're going to be taking a look at SCP-457, The Burning Man, by SCP Explained Story and Animation. This is the first video I've checked out from this channel, but this was a SCP that was potentially brought up in a recent video that I'd done, so I kind of wanted to just do a follow-up and see what this SCP is all about. So yeah, links will be down below in the description to the original video and channel without my commentary and reaction. So yeah, click that link if you enjoyed this video. Go over there and give the original video by SCP Explained Story and Animation. And if you enjoy their content, go over there and hit that subscribe button on their channel. Yeah, so again, this is SCP-457 Burning Man. Just gonna jump right on into it here. Climb up a little bit. Boop, boop.
In the summer of 2007, in the heart of a forest in Northern California, hundreds of people were gathered for a yearly art and music festival. It was meant to be a celebration, a weekend filled with creative expression, dancing, and sure, probably some illegal substances. But it was all said to be a mostly wholesome affair, and one that attendees had been looking forward to all year. On the evening of the festival's first night, after a day of painting, performance art, interpretive dance, and folk pop fusion.
What kind of festival is this? Because that's, I mean, like painting, okay, performance art, I mean, all right. But then you're getting into interpretive dance and folk pop fusion. That's a strange mixture of all of these things. A strange mixture of all of these things. Like, is this some kind of like Renaissance fair? Like, you could easily make a Burning Man joke. They just went out to like literally Burning Man and then someone turned into the Burning Man. Like, is that what's happened here? Did people go to the Burning Man event and then it became an actual SCP? You know what I'm saying? Is that what happened?
The organizers put together a massive bonfire. Everyone gathered around, roasting marshmallows and vegan hot dogs, and breaking out their acoustic...
Bro, marshmallows and vegan hot dogs? Come on now. Come on now. That is not a good mix.
...guitars for a sing-along. It was all going well, and they were heading into the third refrain of Kumbaya, when a group of friends adding logs to the fire noticed something odd. Some of the flames at the edge of the fire pit were moving in a different direction than the rest. While most of the flames flickered upward, some tilting slightly with the direction of the wind, these flames were moving sideways against the wind, stretching themselves out towards the grass. It seemed bizarre, impossible, and they wondered at first if perhaps the brownies they had eaten earlier had more than just...
I mean, yeah, you know, if you're at a festival and you're taking certain substances, you could definitely equate that to being a little on the messed up side of things. So you could question as to whether or not what you're seeing is actually happening, depending on what you took. I could see that. But it's interesting. I guess my question would be, starting off here now, it's like what would have caused the fire to all of a sudden exist, right? What would have caused this fire to like gain sentience and are trying to crawl away?
Chocolate in them. But then, the flames kept moving, taking on a familiar shape. They were dancing orange and yellow flames. There was no doubt about that. But they also seemed almost like fingers. The fingers extended outward, grasping for something. Attached to the fingers was a hand, then an arm. Another hand joined it, twisting into the grass.
This is like sounding like the origin of some kind of like slasher or Halloween story, right? You know, like a group of kids are out in the woods, you know, camping in some kind of area they shouldn't be camping on some kind of ancient Indian burial ground. They do something to disrupt the spirits there, and one of the spirits takes the form of, you know, a burning man and seeks vengeance,
which dried and crackled at its touch. One of the friends, a young woman named Flower, attempted to alert one of the event staff, but they were too busy trying to get their marshmallow to the perfect shade of golden brown. Unable to get any help, she watched helplessly as the fiery hands dragged a head, a torso, and the rest of a humanoid body behind them.
Bro, like seriously, like, can you imagine that? Like if you're out there and that like these people have taken like acid or DMT or you know some shrooms or something like that, and all of a sudden they see like this fireman come out of the fire, like be flipping out.
It looked like the shape of an ordinary man, with the glaring exception that it was made entirely out of fire. It stepped out of the fire pit and began to take slow, halting strides toward the gathered crowd. Now everyone took notice of what was happening.
I mean, how could you not?
They froze in shock, staring at this being of pure flame, unbearable heat.
I think you should run.
As he moved closer and closer. When he reached out a hand toward Flower, and the arm of Flower's dress ignited in flames on contact, the first scream broke through the silence.
I mean,
when they marketed this year's event,
I feel like at that point, that's kind of your fault, right? Like if you see this man of fire coming at you and reaching for you, if you don't move away, at that point, it's kind of like survival of the fittest. And, you know, I don't know what else can be said.
Says Burning Man in the Woods. This was not what they had in mind.
Burning Man in the Woods. Yeah, Burning Man reference. I knew that was going to happen.
He was just the same. A man made of flames tearing through what was meant to be a peaceful and happy event with no dangers beyond exhaustion, dehydration, and maybe a noise complaint.
Quite the hair there, fella.
Instead, the crowd scattered in every possible direction, running for
Bro, aren't you guys going to try to put Flower out here, dude?
Too late for poor Flower, who fell to the ground shrieking in agony as the fire engulfed the organic material of her dress, and the flaming man pulled her into its deadly arms.
Yikes.
Her screams went quiet, drowned out by the crackling roar of the fire as it fed on her flammable body.
I like how
material
you see the little uvula there just
pulled her into
swinging away there like a lot.
Screams
that just looks hilarious.
Drowned out by the crackling roar of the fire as it fed on her flammable body. Once Flower was nothing but a pile of bones and ashes, the entity began to walk slowly, purposefully, through the woods with its arms outstretched. It brushed its fingertips over everything it passed. Every tree, every stump, every plant.
So, like, is this thing just, like, trying to set everything on fire? Is it a situation where, like, that's how it, like, reproduces, I guess? You know what I'm saying? Like, creating fire reproduces itself? And is that, like, its instinctual drive? Or is this guy just like, ooh, fire, and just wants to set things on fire? Literally wants to watch the world burn.
Plant or scrap of fabric torn off of a branch. The fire began to spread like, well, wildfire. By the time the first festival goers made it out of the forest and into the nearby town to get help, dozens of acres of forest were ablaze and over 50 people were dead. The fire department was deployed to the forest, where they were able to contain the blaze after hours of work. Meanwhile, word of the man made of fire that destroyed the art and music festival reached the only people qualified to deal with such a creature, the SCP Foundation. It employed operatives embedded in the local police force, who joined the fire department under the guise of providing reinforcements. Once the blaze was contained and the area was largely safe to enter, they followed the path of the fire and tracked the being responsible for all the destruction. They found it, shrunk to the size of a small child, huddled in the fire pit where it all began, as if it was hiding from the fire hoses. Then they apprehended the being, later designated as...
Interesting. So, I wonder why that is, right? So, it initially went out, tried to spread fire to everything, I guess. Maybe it was an instinctual thing. Maybe that's how it reproduces. Maybe that's how it gains power. And then once the Foundation came out there and put the blazes out, it shrunk down. I guess maybe it's a situation where, you know, the original fire pit where it came from ran out of fuel. And so, like any fire, when it runs out of things to burn, it weakens. Maybe it's a situation where without stuff to burn, it would die. You know what I mean?
SCP-457. SCP-457 is comprised of unknown materials, though obviously it is made up of something flammable. Whatever it is made up of something invisible and impossible to detect by any known scientific means.
Interesting.
The only visible aspect of the entity is the flames it produces, which tend to make up a humanoid shape as long as it has enough fuel to reach that size. If it does not have enough fuel, it shrinks in size, becoming as small as the single flame atop a lit match.
Okay.
In its smallest form.
So, I mean, yeah, it's pretty much what I thought, where it needs things to burn in order to exist.
It is indistinguishable from any other small flame, except for the occasional display of independence, such as jumping to other fires or flammable materials, which...
So, if it does, if it gets small enough, it becomes indistinguishable from any other fire. So I wonder how it got created in that fire then, you know? Was like another one of these, you know, weird organizations that they happen to be out there, and did they spark it off? Was it something like, was Dr. Wintertainment out there chilling at the, you know, this convention, carnival, whatever you want to call it, and was like, hey, you know, whatever, let me just throw this, you know, marshmallow in the fire or something, and it created this entity, you know? Like, wonder what happened to like actually create this entity,
which it can then use to grow larger. When it is large enough to take on a human form, SCP-457 displays human-like intelligence and is capable of communication through writing, which it does by burning letters into surfaces with its flames, or even through speech. Though it lacks the anatomy to produce a traditional voice, it produces coherent sounds via pressurized, superheated air, as well as the crackle of its flames. If provided with enough fuel to grow beyond humanoid size, the entity can split into 2 or more beings.
So it is. So yeah, that pretty much is what I was saying. If it gets enough fuel or whatever, that's basically how it reproduces, by burning stuff.
Depending on how much fuel it is given. However, this split state does not last, as the separate instances of SCP-457 will attempt to attack each other until they are the only one left standing. SCP-457 seems to want nothing more than to consume more and more fuel and spread as far as it can. It has shown a troubling ability to learn and adapt, purposefully breaking and interfering with sprinkler systems in the building and setting up elaborate traps for personnel it does not like. Dr. Smythe, head of the research team assigned to SCP-457, conducted an interview with the subject on a rare day where it was feeling cooperative in order to better assess its psychology and motivations. Dr. Smythe entered SCP-457's containment chamber, carrying a fire extinguisher in case of any hostility on the part of the entity. He stood on the other side of the...
I wouldn't just have a fire extinguisher. I would be in there with one of those like thermal suits. You keep, you know, a certain distance from me, and I would have probably a crew in there with me in those thermal suits with like liquid nitrogen throwers or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
The blast shielded window for extra...
Just sitting there with a little fire extinguisher would not give me the kind of confidence to jump in a room with a literal burning man.
Protection. It crackled pleasantly in the corner, seeming to welcome him inside. He asked if it was capable of or willing to speak. It answered yes. He asked how it felt about being confined. It responded plainly, dislike. No fuel, no air. When Dr. Smythe reminded the entity that it had enough air and fuel to survive, it argued that it could not burn and had no fuel. To clarify, Dr. Smythe asked, "Are you saying that you cannot grow?" At this question, SCP-457 moved back and forth through the small section of the room, as if pacing and looking for something. It said, "Grow, need, must grow." And when
So yeah, it wants more fuel to burn because it wants to become a bigger fire.
asked how it felt, it simply said, "Hungry."
It kind of seems like a contradiction though, right? Because if it gets enough fuel, it splits itself off into different versions of itself that then fight itself for supremacy. So like, if it were to be out in the wild and get enough fuel to grow large enough to keep burning more and more things, wouldn't it just snuff itself out eventually, right? Wouldn't it almost kind of be self-containing in certain ways? But I mean, I don't know. It's like one of those situations where like it needs to grow to a certain level in order to replicate, and then once replicated, it would try to attack another version of itself, but it would still need to burn a certain amount first. So I don't know.
As the questioning continued, the entity approached the window and stretched a hand made of flame toward the glass. For a moment, it stopped responding to Dr. Smythe. In order to get the being's attention back, he casually brought up the subject of water. At the very mention of it, SCP-457 let out a high-pitched scream and pressed itself against the window in a threatening gesture. Dr. Smythe warned it that it must move away from the window or it would be doused in water. It moved back, but screamed and hissed for several more minutes, offended and upset. SCP-457 resumed its pacing at a more aggressive speed and intensity. All the while it repeated, "Want fuel, want air, want burn, want burn, want to burn," again and again, getting louder and louder as it moved.
Yeah, that's all it does. It has just an instinctual drive to want to set things on fire.
Dr. Smythe was perplexed by this behavior, noting that there was no way out and wondering what it could be trying to accomplish. At this point, the interview took a turn for the disastrous. Somehow, SCP-457 was able to damage the sprinkler system and a section of the fuel injector that had been providing it with a small stream of fuel. With the nozzle broken open, several gallons of gasoline came flooding out, allowing the entity to grow to an incredible size in a sudden, massive, destructive blast.
You know, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'll say that right now. But I feel like I would put this thing in a room that was tall enough and wide enough to where it would not be able to reach any kind of sprinkler system. I'm just saying. I would never allow it to grow that tall, right? You think that would be obvious.
Exploiting a weakness in the blast shielding, SCP-457 was able to escape its containment for several minutes.
But I mean, we're talking about the SCP Foundation. Sometimes it's its own worst enemy. I mean, I don't know.
Burning its way down the hall of the facility until the larger sprinkler system activated, sending it hissing back to its cell. There it was apprehended.
It's interesting that it wouldn't just put it out. I guess like the fire is so intense that it's able to like withstand being doused by water.
By a team of guards and herded into a new higher security cell. It is unknown how exactly the entity became aware of the weaknesses in its containment chamber, but this incident revealed that it is a highly intelligent being capable of problem solving. However, it learned this information and figured out how to exploit it. The Foundation realized that more extensive measures would need to be taken to keep it locked down and keep the general population safe. Due to the dangerous nature of SCP-457's corporeal form, highly specialized containment procedures have been put in place to keep the flame from spreading. The entity is kept in a 5x5 meter chamber with at least 9 inches of fireproofing in place, including asbestos and perlite.
Yeah.
The observation window is blastproof and resistant to extremely high temperatures. The room's opening is made up of temperature-controlled and airtight chambers that can be seen.
Man, I would have like a multi-chamber system to get in there where it has to keep being pressurized. So like if it gets through one door, you know, it would have to like depressurize, etc., etc.
Sealed in the event of an escape attempt. The room itself is kept at a high humidity level, and a drain has been installed on the floor, with a sprinkler system in the ceiling and emergency hoses that can be operated if additional water is needed. A small portion of the room is free from water, but only enough so that SCP-457 can maintain its shape and protect itself from moisture. Any personnel that enters SCP-457's containment unit must wear Class A temperature-controlled and flame-resistant suits, and must enter in groups of 3. 2 of the 3 members of each group must be armed with blast shields and fire extinguishers. Personnel are not permitted to enter the containment chamber for any reason other than providing daily fuel, or fixing any issues with the room or its sprinkler system. In some ways, its containment procedures are reminiscent of a particularly spicy variant of SCP-173. If the entity attempts to attack any personnel, it can be deterred via the application of fire extinguishers or hoses until it backs down. If it escapes from containment, further sprinkler systems will be activated throughout the facility in order to contain the fire. The highest priority, aside from keeping the entity contained, is keeping it fed, because it needs constant fuel in order to survive.
I mean, yeah, that would be, I wonder what its like monthly cost is to keep this thing fueled, right? Like, it would not be cheap, you know? Gas and oil, they ain't cheap these days.
The Foundation is currently prioritizing finding an infinitely renewable...
It is interesting, though, because, I mean, that could be an idea of, could you not use its thermal capabilities to power things as well? You know, could you not create some kind of, I don't know, tungsten chamber apparatus or whatever to seal it in something extremely temperature resistant, and then just keep feeding it fuel and use its thermal output to power things, you know?
Source of fuel, though many have been proposed, including the use of other SCPs such as SCP-2689 and SCP-124.
I don't know
no
what those
source
ones
has
are.
been officially approved yet. In the meantime, they keep the burning being fed and happy, or as happy as it can be. It will never be truly satisfied until a day arrives where it can be permitted to spread as far and wide as it wishes, to burn and feed and engulf everything in sight. Let's hope that day never comes, but if you start to feel unusually hot, if the walls seem to suddenly blacken around you, and you hear the final crackles before the hissing tongues of flame lick at your bubbling skin, well, by that point, it'll already be too late. Now go check out This SCP Does Not Exist, SCP-3930 The Pattern Screamer, and SCP-173 Origin Story How 173 Got to Site-19 for more strange and unusual SCPs.
Alright, well there we go. There we go. That was SCP-457 Burning Man by SCP Explained Story and Animations. Links to the original video without my commentary and reaction and to the SCP Explained Story and Animations channel will be down below in the description. As always, if you enjoyed this video of his, go over there and give it a like. And if you enjoy the man's content and are not already subbed to him, please do me the favor of going over to his channel and hitting that sub button. Interesting SCP. I mean, I as we went through this video, I kind of really already proposed all my questions that I kind of had about it, but really the main one is like, what caused it to spring to life, you know? Is it just a random event that happened that made this creature come to life? Was there some kind of other organization like, you know, a Dr. Entertainment or some other kind of organization like that that was doing some kind of experiment in that area, and there's happened to be a group of people out there, you know, having a festival of some sort, and this being came to life out of it? I wonder if the person who wrote the article kind of took the idea of, you know, Surtur, the flame giant in Norse mythology that's supposed to destroy the world, or destroy Asgard anyway, because it seems kind of like a somewhat similar idea in a vague way of, you know, this creature wants to just consume everything to grow bigger and more powerful. You know, again, it's strange that once it reaches a certain amount of fuel, it can split itself off and replicate, reproduce, whatever, but then those versions of themselves fight each other. So I do wonder, would it be a situation where it would almost kind of be self-containing in some certain ways, but at the same time, a certain amount of fuel burning would have to happen in order for it to split off to begin with, you know what I mean? So I don't know, would this entity be able to contain itself essentially if it was out in the wild or not, or would it just grow to like an all-consuming massive size and literally burn the world? And then if, you know, the world were to be all consumed by it, what would happen to it? I would assume eventually it would run out of fuel and just die, would burn out all life, all oxygen, and, you know, there might just be ocean left on the planet, and that would be it. It would be an interesting kind of what if scenario video to do. You know, what would happen if the Burning Man were to get out and consume and grow to its full potential? You know, what could happen? So but yeah, that was, like I said, SCP-457 Burning Man by SCP Explaining Story and Animations. If you enjoyed this video of his, like I said, go over there, click his links, give it a like, give him a sub if you're not already subbed to him. If you would like to join us as we do these reactions live, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. If you've been around the channel for a while and you decide you want to take your support to the next level, you can click those, check it out, see if any of those benefits and tiers spark any kind of interest for you. Regardless, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate you taking the time to check out the videos. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and the channel grow. And yeah, we'll check you guys out on the next one. Thank you guys very much. Take it easy.